up guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can probably tell by the thumbnail, today we're going to be working on this little guy right here. You guys probably noticed this truck from a walk around video we did. This is Nick's 2007 Toyota Tacoma, built by Dirt King Fabrication. We could do just a quick little rundown on this truck if you haven't seen it before. The front is rocking the Dirt King race kit with a coilover and bypass up front and a bump stop as well. Got a nice little clean front bumper on it. Obviously, nice set of wheels and tires. And then the rear is rocking the Dirt King bolt-in bed cage and a set of bypasses, as well as a bump stop back here and a set of leaf springs. So the reason that the truck is here is I'm going to be adding some bedside supports to the back of this thing, as well as cutting the bedsides a little bit. When Dirt King mounted the bedsides on the truck, they did these little bedside supports right here that go from the bed itself and then connects down to the bottom side of the fender. But one thing that Nick doesn't like about these bedsides, just from driving the truck around and looking at it, he doesn't like how the fender kind of rolls underneath right there. So what we're going to be doing is cutting a nice line along the side of the bed right here, along the side of the bedside, and we're just going to cut just right across here, put a nice gradual slope to it, kind of like what it already has, but we're just going to get rid of this underhang right here. And then what we're going to run is a nice fender washer, just like this. This will end up going either back here or right here. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to go yet, but we'll figure out where that goes once we cut it. And then I'm going to need to make some new bedside supports for back here. And the front side of the bed does not have anything. There is a cab mount right there with a hole in it already. What I'm probably going to do is end up coming off of that, using that hole coming off of that, and then tying into the bottom of the fender right here, because these fenders, I'm not sure if you can see, but these fenders definitely move up front. So we want to eliminate that and make sure the paint doesn't crack or do anything like that. So I have some more fender washers. I'll end up adding one up here on both sides. That way the fender doesn't want to move anymore and everything's nice and secure. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I already have kind of an idea on how I'm going to go about this, I'm going to go ahead and cut all the little tabs and everything that I need for these bedside supports out first. That way I have everything kind of laid out and I can just kind of start connecting the dots with tubing. But that's going to be the first step, is just cutting all the tabs out, the ones on the bedside and then the ones on the bedside side, if that makes sense. You'll see in a second. So this tab is going to be the fender side. I'm just going to run a very generic, just rectangular shape tab that will end up having the bolt for your fender washer to actually go through. So the first thing I did for the template was you can kind of see the outline of the fender washer. The reason I did that is that obviously I wanted the width of the tab to be wide enough to fit the fender washer and have a nice surface when everything's bolted together. So I started with that, and then I just kind of generally guessed at how much space I'm going to need to land a tube right here on the back side for the actual bedside support. So I cut that out, obviously cut 4 of them, and then this is going to be the top side. So this will be on the actual bed itself. And what I did is I made a little template for the pieces that go down inside of here, drilled a hole in them, and you can see all these are just a press fit right now. Everything's just kind of sitting in there. I had to use a mallet to tap these in, but I'm gonna go ahead and TIG these together right now and then grind everything flat. You can see they're nice and flush. Let me get that on there. See, they're nice and flush with the tubing. So I'll go ahead, lay a nice little TIG bead on there, and it'll make it a whole lot easier to clean up instead of doing like a bunch of MIG welds on there, because the MIG weld is obviously going to be a lot taller and take a lot more time to grind off. So go ahead and do that, and then once those are cleaned up and welded, I can kind of get all this stuff set up on the truck, just mock it up, and then connect the dots with the tubing for the actual bedside supports. So we're moving on to day number 2 on these bedside supports. I did go ahead this morning and do a couple things off camera just to kind of keep things rolling. So I'll kind of go over that right now with you. You can see I do have a level kind of mocked up on the top of the bed up here, and the reason for that is because I need to figure out how I'm going to cut my lines down here the same on each side. So the best way to do that, especially with unequal or uneven flooring, what you can do is go off the top of the bed. That's going to be your best bet. So I just have this clamped here because I don't want this moving around while I'm taking measurements off the bottom of here, and then came down, marked both sides, put some tape down, marked one side with a Sharpie just roughly where I wanted it, took a measurement, and then went over and traced it onto the other side in the same spot. And then I used just some masking tape right here to get my outline for the line I'm going to be cutting. So that's how much of the fender I'm going to actually be removing. Then once I cut this line and get the tape out of there, I'll go ahead and land my fender washer where I want it, up here on the fender, and then I can go ahead and make the tubing behind it for the bedside support. But I did go ahead and get the front side. You can see the tube up there in place, and then down here I ended up going with the tab that you saw, as well as I made another piece of tubing that I welded to it, and then that's going to have a tube run from that little piece of tubing down there up to the piece of tubing up here. So that's where I'm at right this second. I do need to go ahead now and get these fenders cut, which I'm kind of putting off because I'm scared to do it, but need to go ahead with just an angle grinder and a cutoff wheel, zip that line right there. Well, I'm glad that's done and over with. So everything came out good with the cut. Tape did its job, no paint peeled, the line's nice and straight. I did go ahead and get the fender washer hole drilled, and the way I found that was I just took my fender washer right here, got some tape, and just kind of started placing it on the bedside in different spots, just kind of seeing where I wanted it and what looked the best. And I ended up coming up with that spot right there, so had it taped right there, and then just put the drill bit right through it, drilled my hole, then we're good. I just need to transfer this over to the other side now. And the way I'm going to do that is take a measurement from the edge of the fender here, measure over, and then take my level, take a measurement from up here, measure down, make sure they're both in the same spot, at least relatively close on each side, and then we can go ahead and start making the tubes. Got my hole drilled, got my fender washer installed with the tab actually sitting on the back side. The tab goes towards the wheel, so the long side of the rectangle goes out like that, just to kind of get an idea how that looks. But now that that is there, I did go ahead on this side already, and I got the tubes fit on the front side. You can see it goes right in there. It's a piece of 1-inch tubing, DOM tubing. That's going to be the front, and then the back side right here comes off of my tab, or my tube up there, comes down and lands on the tab back here. It's kind of hard to see because it's dark, but this side is done and tacked in place. So you can see now, fenders don't move literally at all, and that's just tacked in place. So these should be doing their jobs perfect. Now I just need to go ahead and transfer the tubes that I made on this side over to that side, and I'll show you guys that. The very first thing that I do is I'll go ahead and take a measurement with a tape measure and measure from the inside of this post right here to the inside of this post right here. Just figure out what my inside dimension is, and I typically add about 1 inch, depending on this diameter of the tubing. I'll add 1 inch overall to the length of the tubing. That way my notch that goes onto the tube there, a notch that goes onto the tube right here, will be compensated for. And even if there is a little bit of tubing left over when I make the notches, I'll just go ahead and keep trimming it away until it fits, because I'd rather have a piece that's a little bit too big than too small. So I will work on the front right here. I'll get this tube cut to length. I want to say this is going to be about a 14-inch piece of tubing, and then I'll put my notches on it and then start slowly fitting it with an angle grinder. There's a nice little montage for you guys getting those tubes cut and in place. Everything came out really nicely. I did get everything put in here for final with all the correct hardware. I did paint everything as well with black Steelit, and it came out looking really nice. I did TIG weld everything, as you saw in the montage, and I think it looks just a whole lot cleaner, especially with little parts like this. There's big MIG welds all over everything. It definitely wouldn't look as nice. One thing I want to talk about real quick that we just got recently is a new chop saw. We did get a Evolution S355 chop saw. It comes with the good blade on it, a metal blade, instead of what we were using before, which is a composite blade. These blades are very loud and they don't cut as accurately as a blade like this. And this saw just overall has a lot more power compared to what our old saw was. The cool part about going to a saw that has a blade like this is when you cut, it'll cut faster, and it also cuts a lot colder. So as soon as you cut with this saw, when you're done cutting, you can grab the metal and it's not as hot. You can literally touch it in your hands, no problem. This saw, as soon as you're done cutting, no matter what you're cutting, it's going to be very, very hot. It's like cutting with a cutoff wheel on an angle grinder. It's gonna make whatever you're cutting extremely hot and put a lot of heat in it. Another thing with this blade is when you cut, you don't have as many burrs on the material as you would with a composite blade like this. So it makes it a lot easier once you cut your tube to clean it up real quickly and move on to whatever you're trying to do. That is gonna do it for this video though. Hopefully you guys learned something and you can go ahead and make some bed supports for yourself if you ever mount fiberglass fenders on your truck down the road. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.